Good afternoon, Treasury Talent community. As always, it is Wednesday, and this is another Facebook Live chat with the Treasury Talent team. We are very fortunate to be joined today by Tracey Knight. Tracey is the Director of Solutions Engineering in the Treasury space over at HighRadius. And Tracey, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm glad to be here.
Where are you joining us from today? Where in the world are you?
I am in Frisco, Texas. It is a North Dallas suburb.
All right, perfect. Well, we appreciate you making time for us. As always, I'm Joe Grabowski. We're joined by Simon Lynch, who's down under. Simon, what's the word in Australia today?
Well, it's another beautiful spring day, Joe. I'm looking forward to maybe getting down for a quick dip after we finish our call today.
Perfect. That's not even remotely possible where we're at. So, Scotty, our our local mountain man. What's going on in Utah?
Same old. We're getting more summer, which I think would be music to your ears, Joe, as the audience likely knows by now. But for me, I'm ready for the snow. Like I said last week, it's not anywhere in sight at this point.
Yeah. My stance on fall heading into winter is well documented, so we're not going to beat that up. Everything's well in Michigan right now. So, with that, the invite is open to the community. If you have any questions for Tracey along the way, please make sure that you're asking them. We're more than happy to get them answered for you. Obviously, we're going to keep the conversation going on this end, but if there's any comments or questions that you have, it's an open floor. Please make sure that you're asking that. And with that, Simon, I'm going to kick it over to you. Let's get started.
Yeah, Tracey, thank you very much for coming on. I just wanted to quickly, for the listeners, just give us a quick snapshot of your background. You've come from corporate and you're in fintech. Just lead us down that journey.
That's right. I've been at HighRadius for about 1 year now. In fact, September 30th is my 1 year anniversary. So very excited to be here because we're doing something very new in Treasury and in the cash forecasting space. But before I came to HighRadius, I was actually in fintech with Treasury management system vendors for the previous 20 years. So I'm kind of dating myself there because before that, I was a practitioner myself at what is now AT&T. Back then it was Southwestern Bell Telephone and then SBC Communications. So it's been a good 30 years, slightly plus, of working life. But the Treasury part, both as a practitioner and as a vendor, have been the most exciting parts.
Very good. And congratulations on the 1 year anniversary there at HighRadius. That's fantastic. So just, you mentioned you made the move from corporate to fintech, and you've done everything from pre-sales, sales, implementation, client events, and more. What have been some of the highlights for you over the course of this career?
Yeah, there have been a couple of really significant moments. The first, I think, is when I found Treasury. I was hired out of college to SBC, or Southwestern Bell actually, in the finance department, but certainly I didn't know anything about Treasury, which I imagine a lot of people say you kind of stumble upon it. And it was the same for me. I had been working there for a couple of years in a few different roles, and I wanted to be promoted and was looking on the job boards for just about anything that might get me promoted. And in fact, I interviewed internally and was thinking about a job in HR, and my manager said no. He said, I will not release you for something like that. That is not you. He said, what do you really want to do? And I said, I think I'm interested in one of those Treasury jobs like they have at headquarters. I had kind of liaised with them from time to time over the years. And he said, then you should wait for what you really want. And lo and behold, within literally just a month or two later, a job appeared on the job boards for a job in Treasury. And so I applied. I did not get it. They hired someone else. That other person didn't work out. And a month or two later, they came back to me and hired me for the job. And the rest has been history. So that was one of the most significant moments, was actually finding this area that truly energized me. I remember my very first day in Treasury like it was yesterday. That very first day, I got to do some wire transfers. And I remember moving millions of dollars and calling my mom on the phone saying, guess what? You won't believe what I just did. And then literally, probably within still that very first year, some customers sent in a check to pay their bill. And it's not supposed to come to, headquarters office in finance, but it did. And so it was an over $1 million check, and I didn't have time to take it to the bank. It took me a few days to walk it down to the bank. And so by that point, $1 million was nothing. I was already then used to moving 50 million, 100 million and more each day. So that was just insignificant. So that was, I think, the most significant thing. And in that role, I really got a chance to learn about everything in Treasury in a very systematic way. Southwestern Bell was the very best place I could have ever started my career. I learned about cash management, in-house banking, foreign exchange, investment, debt, literally every key area of Treasury, and it really has set up everything that's happened since. I believe that I was truly blessed to start my career there, because few places would I have had an opportunity to work on such a scale with technology and with some wonderful people that I stay in touch with today.
And what took you across then from the Southwestern Bell into the vendor side of things?
Bell, all of the bells, which were at the time, baby bells that slowly came back together, are places where people tend to work literally their whole careers. There were people who worked on my team that had 30 and 40 years of service. And I started there coming right out of college. So I got close to 9 years, and a friend came to me with an opportunity. MCI had been moving into local service and was looking for people who had experience in a variety of different finance roles. And they offered me 30% more in salary. So I jumped at the job, even though it wasn't in Treasury. I enjoyed, of course, my first couple of checks and was amazed at how much more money I was making, but I did not enjoy the job. And so because a friend had recruited me, I would have stayed there for 2 years before I quit, just out of loyalty to her because she had recruited me. But fortunately, they laid the whole department off after just 1 year, and I was free. And believe me, Monster was brand new at the time. And I went looking on Monster job board, and I searched on the word Treasury. And I came across this small company based in Vancouver, Canada, called Selkirk Financial Technologies. And they were the maker of Treasury Manager, which was an early treasury management system. And at Southwestern Bell, I had used ICMS, which is now part of FIS. And so I was very experienced with treasury management systems. I like to talk. And so a job that said you have to know Treasury, you talk to a lot of different companies, you learn about what they're doing and how they're doing it and what their problems are, and then you demonstrate the solution in ways that will benefit the client. I was like, this is perfect for me. And so I got the job. I didn't know where Vancouver was on the map. I had to look it up and so see that it was just a little north of Seattle. I worked here in Dallas, always worked from home, even over all those years. So I've been working from home for about 20 years and was just a road warrior, and literally would be traveling sometimes 2 or 3 different cities between Monday and Friday each week. And I absolutely loved it.
Tracey, it's amazing to hear your passion come out in your voice, and I can tell why you've been doing what you've done for 20 years. What's the one piece of advice over that journey then that you wish you'd been told back in your Southwest Bell days that you know now that you can share with the listeners?
I'd say a couple of things. One, that money isn't going to make you happy. I took that job because of the huge increase in salary, and that excitement of that literally wore off in just like a month or two. If you don't love what you're doing, going to work every day can be kind of miserable. You might still do a good job just because that's who you are, but it's not exciting. It's not energizing. And I know that for me, I need that to come together. I definitely want to make money, but I need to be energized and love what I do. And so I think a lack of sufficient money will make you unhappy. But having more just to have more alone isn't going to do it, isn't going to make you happy. And then 2, I would say, no matter where you are, learn all you can. I was a sponge at Southwestern Bell, especially when I got to Treasury. I really got into the depths of learning about ICMS at the time. I learned how to write scripts. I learned, of course, the actual Treasury function jobs, but I really got into the technology as well. And I'm not what I would consider a techie. I think I'm more of the average kind of Treasury professional, but I liked learning. And so I learned crystal reports. I learned, learned just every aspect. And even then, we were all about automating it within our Treasury management system. So as we wanted to automate more, you had to learn more. You had to learn a little bit about writing SQL. You had to learn a little bit here, learn a little bit there. And I really took on as much as I could and had managers who were more than happy to let me take on as much as I could and wanted to. And so it was just a great training ground. And so to anyone, I would say no matter where you are in a job you love or one you don't like, learn what you can from it. There's always something to be learned, and you'd be surprised at how those things that you thought really were small things maybe will add to a situation that comes later on. Even at the company that I left for where I didn't like the job, I don't think I said the name, I'll try not to. I still learned things. Even while I was there, I learned to be a better manager. I helped others learn how to learn. We were very process oriented at Southwestern Bell. Everything got documented. Some of those practices, and that's actually what they were called, practices, is a good thing going forward. There's kind of sometimes a lack of documentation. And some of those skills I find very useful today because not every company values them. And it's not until an emergency comes along, like COVID, for example, when suddenly things change so rapidly that you realize everybody doesn't know, how they fit together. It's not written anywhere. What do I do when my system isn't working or when I can't access it? How do I still make sure there's enough money in the bank to cover payroll and money in the right bank accounts and in the right countries and everywhere. So it's good to have things documented, and some of that structure that I learned along the way, I've continued to put to good use.
And you mentioned it. Obviously, we've covered the technical aspect of Treasury and what you've learned along your career as we're going to call it seasoned. You already threw the amount of years out there, but as a seasoned Treasury professional, you mentioned, one of the common themes and what you've been talking about has been relationships and learning. And talk to me about that for a minute. What's been your approach, or what have you learned about networking and relationships throughout the course of your career, and what advice would you give to the audience along those lines?
Yeah, I never took networking formally. I've had lots of mentors, but it was never through, let's call it a structured or a formal mentor-mentee relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it starts with starting off just humble. Being willing to say when you don't know something and asking why. I still remember actually one of the first good questions that I actually had no idea what the answer was. Even back at Southwestern Bell, our director was talking about, something around in-house banking or intercompany loans. And I said, but I don't understand. How do you decide what's a loan and what's equity? And, he gave me kind of some longer answer than I really wanted at the time. But what I realized is that there's a lot more to this than I first thought. That the whole science, if you will, behind finance and managing the balance sheet and making companies look attractive in the right ways, and the subsidiaries and the relationship between parents and subsidiaries, all that stuff was important. And so I think asking why, being curious, is a really important part of learning. And you can learn from anybody, whether they are formal kind of relationships or just the colleague sitting next to you who's maybe done some things that you haven't done before. So I think the first important part is being curious. And then along the line, as you build relationships and you realize that there are people who have some strengths that fall outside of your own strengths, utilizing those, acknowledging it, and then leaning on those people for things that fill what you don't do well. Even in my move to the last two companies I've been at, they were recommendations. I haven't needed to send in a resume just blindly, other than, I guess, maybe the first 2 jobs. After that, every role that I've had, every move I've made has been because someone told me about it, went out of their way to tell me about it, and rate a referral, a personal referral. And I think that's a sign of when you are building good relationships. Um, I work to have integrity in everything I do. It's part of who I am. And so in all of my dealings, even in sales, which sometimes has a negative connotation, I work to be honest, to be happy and look forward to seeing people at AFP or other conferences every year. And so I never want them to want to dodge me or think, oh, Tracey, she oversold me, or any of the things that you sometimes hear. And I think having the right attitude in your relationships is what kind of builds that greater network around you. And it's not just that you might need them, but if you're doing it right, then you're also helping others. I've tried to hire people who maybe were less than the obvious hire. They had the right attitude. They had some of the right skills, but not always more skilled than some of the other applicants. But they had the right desire, the right attitude, the right amount of humility, even to say that, I don't know everything that you say might be a requirement, but I'm able to learn. So I've tried to pass on a lot of what I've learned now that I am, more seasoned. And I'm working at a fintech firm, which means half of my coworkers are 20. Um, I try to share with them. I share with them about work, or sometimes if they're having problems dealing with people, or even better writing skills, whatever it might be. There are some who still keep sending me their papers, almost like I'm the teacher to grade it and correct their grammar. But we also share life skills, why you should be investing in the 401k right from the day one that you are eligible, and what that means to you. Why you might want to buy a house, and what kind of house you should look for in what area. I think that if you work to be as open as possible and to share what you know, and know the difference between what you know and just what you think you know, and then to absorb as much as you can from others, you will build a humongous network which will influence and help guide your work relationships, but your life in general. Some of the people that I worked with way back when I started in '99 at Selkirk Financial Technologies, I won't call them friends in terms of the fact that we like talk to each other every day or something like that. But I will say these are some of the deepest friendships in my life. We worked together in those days when we were all pretty young. We were single. We were free to work hard and play hard, which was our motto at the time. And these relationships are the people that I call on when I'm considering what my next move should be, or looking to find a contact maybe who can help me learn something that I need to learn more about. And so it's the people that I've built these strong relationships with. How many years ago is 99? 20 years ago, that I lean on even now. So I think you can build a great network just by being open, by being humble, by asking why.
Tracey, I love your strategy there. I think it's a really good way of looking at networking. Can I ask you, like you made the move away from the corporate side into the vendor side. What are the big differences and I guess similarities? I know you needed the experience in corporate to get your initial role, as you said earlier, but talk us through the challenges and the things that are similar and different between the two for the listeners.
Oh goodness, let's see. Mine is kind of, I think, unique in that I do work from home and have for years. And I think my experience, I'm not sure how much is vendor side difference versus how much is not working in an office every day difference. I think the obvious differences between working at a corporation versus working at a vendor is in the variety of what I do, particularly in a sales role. The very nature of my jobs have been to get to know lots of different companies one at a time, to really understand what they're doing, what their issues and problems might be, and then see if we have technology that's available to help solve that problem. When I worked in Treasury myself, my job as a cash manager, or maybe I was for a while the international cash manager, was still somewhat repetitive. There'd be things that were different every day, but for the most part, my job was to come in and set the positions, move the money, do the cash accounting. I kind of knew what my day was going to be every day and just needed to deal with whatever problem might come along. But on the vendor side, particularly in my role, there are no 2 days that are the same. No companies that are the same. Even when it seems like they might be the same, they aren't. And so the biggest focus I have is on making sure I keep my mind open to not assuming after they say a couple of things that I understand their problem right away and can solve it and have a product that's going to solve that problem. It's important that I make sure that I'm really, truly listening so that I can understand what's unique about each and every different company. And I think that's kind of been the key to when I've been successful and, frankly, when I haven't. When I lose, it's usually because I really didn't understand well. And so that's the one thing I can say that actually kind of keeps me humble, is that you're always there's going to be those times when you lose. And if you learn from it, of course, you'll do, better the next time. And so that's the one thing, is that I've got to make sure that I don't assume that I know everything about them just because I've heard something similar before. I've talked to literally thousands of companies now. And so I have seen a lot, but each one is unique. So sorry.
No, please.
Oh, the other thing that's kind of different about corporations and vendors is that on the vendor side, I've worked for some smaller companies. At a corporation, AT&T is hundreds of thousands of employees, and it still was very, very big, even as Southwestern Bell and SBC. At Selkirk, I was, employee number 70 or so. And at High Radius, within the U.S., within the top 200, although we've got almost 2,000 employees overall, but it's only so many here in the U.S. So it's a very different environment. On the vendor side, it's been very entrepreneurial. I get a chance to work in my job, might be in sales, maybe demonstrating, but I get to influence marketing and work with them. I get to work with the people putting on conferences and deciding what the agenda should be and doing a lot of the public speaking, which I genuinely love. I get to work, and I have worked over the years in implementations, sometimes dealing with some of our most difficult clients and learning skills about how to resolve problems that are favorable to both the client and the company that I'm working for, really trying to find ways to compromise and negotiate. So I would say that for me, on the vendor side, I've loved the fact that we're moving and changing at such a rapid pace that it's never boring. There's always something new to do, to learn. You can rotate between jobs and areas so easily. I've truly loved it. In case it's not obvious.
It definitely is, and so many good takeaways in the last several things you've said that can be applicable not just to your job today, but to job seekers as well, right? Doing research, asking good questions, and just having that level of humility that you don't actually know all the answers. I think it's all great. So this, I guess, now that you are a technology expert, you've been in fintech for so long, And we're seeing some drastic changes within the last decade, and of course more to come. What's your prediction for how the role of the treasurer is going to evolve?
Yeah, I think there's a lot happening with technology. Technology in finance, just like technology in the rest of our lives, is changing rapidly. There are new technologies to help improve and solve problems that have been around for a long, long time. One of the areas that I talk about most often, and some things that touch on why and what I'm doing here at High Radius and why I came here, are around cash forecasting, for example. Cash forecasting has been in the top 10 of list of things that are wrong within Treasury, things that need solving for literally 20 years. I remember giving a presentation about it 20 years ago, and over the years ever since. In the last 5 years, on every survey, and when I say everyone, I mean the Big Four survey, the Treasury strategies, the strategic treasurers, all the other consulting firms, it's the #1 item. So why is that? It's because it's an unsolved area that is important. And so that's where you'll see technology coming in these next few years, is in every area that's been kind of unsolved because the technology couldn't keep up with the problem. But the new technology now around artificial intelligence, machine learning, sometimes you'll hear, robotic process automation. You hear lots of terms thrown around. I think it's important that people learn what they are, because they are coming. So when we talk about what's going to change for the treasurer, think about what's changing in the finance department, very much akin to what's been happening in your own life. When was the last time you looked at a map? In fact, you don't do anything except key it into your phone as you're leaving the house, and it's telling you what to do and where to turn and how long it's going to take. Your phone, your television, your Siri, your Alexa, your Google are making suggestions about the movies you should watch, the music that you might want to listen to because of what you've listened to before and like. Starbucks is letting you know through their app that they'll have your drink ready for you when you get there, and they've already debited your account, but the drink is going to be up on the counter, 2 minutes after you get there. AI is in our lives, every aspect of our life, whether or not you're thinking about it. Your home might have already adjusted the temperature to you before you walk in the house, so it'll be comfortable when you get there, based on your past habits before, not because you programmed it, but because every day when you get home at 5 o'clock, you turn it down 2 degrees. Well, a Nest Learning thermostat will do that for you. That's the very concepts and the kind of technology that is coming into our finance department. So I mentioned cash forecasting, but it applies to more than that. Think about fraud detection. Anywhere where there's a huge amount of data and that there are things that can be learned from that data, that is where and how artificial intelligence can be applied. So that means looking for unusual patterns or anomalies within large amounts of data. So it could be accounting that's been done, or where something's been done incorrectly, either on purpose through fraud or just because of an error. A system can detect that. A system can detect payments that potentially might be fraudulent before they are released, so that they can be looked at twice and brought to the attention of someone with the proper authority. A cash forecast can be created automatically, drawing data from the right places, automatically being displayed for the user to then make any kind of manual adjustments that might be necessary, and more importantly, make the right decisions based on it. Things that in the past have required that a person have a great understanding of their corporate policies and guidelines around investment or debt or foreign exchange or hedging. A system can make a recommendation given the state of the forecast, the state of your policies, the state of what you already have in place and the exposures you have with all kinds of different counterparties. A system can make the recommendations on what the ideal trades should be. So artificial intelligence is bringing a new level of information available to finance. So what the treasurer needs to do, what the treasury manager, the director, the analyst need to do, is to be able to interpret the data into actionable decisions with the knowledge to support why that is, or why what the system might be recommending is not right for us today, given today's current climate. And so I think the emphasis of people in Treasury today ought to be learning how to work with technology. First, going task by task, desk by desk, function by functioning, identifying what can be automated. You don't want to wait for it to come to you. You want to lead the way. And so if you lead the way in identifying where these areas are, you can be instrumental in choosing the right solutions, making sure that you're making the right decisions for your company, but also adapting to what your role should then be to work best with technology. So if the technology is building the forecast, then what is my role? My role is to make the recommendations about what the forecast means, to be advantageous to the CFO so that the CFO is better able to manage, I'm going to say her, since we don't see enough of that yet, quite, to make her decisions well. Every treasurer cares most, and CFO too, about quarter ending cash. There's almost no more important purpose of the cash forecast. So this is what I expect. This is why I expect it. This is what you might consider doing to better manage that number. I was talking to a company the other day who said they tightly work to manage their quarter ending cash because they are so heavily drawn on their debt facilities that they have to carefully manage all of their debt covenants. So they're carefully deciding what to pay, what not to pay, what not to pay that's not going to slow down their supply lines. So you've got to carefully consider, who do I have to pay, even though I don't really want to, but who do I have to pay? You know, make that mortgage payment, but maybe slide on something else. It's the same way for a corporation who might be debt strapped or cash strapped. And so making the recommendations is the advantage that, or what all the people who work in Treasury should be doing with the data that the system might now be creating. And so the treasurer has got to become, and is being asked to become, more strategic, more a partner to the business, more an advisor to the CFO around liquidity and cash. And so often, a lot of liquidity items don't even fall technically in Treasury. AR and AP are outside of Treasury, yet the treasurer is responsible for managing cash. So the better he or she is able to harness all the data, to understand the data, to present it well, to have it presented in meaningful ways that you can quickly see and make a decision, that's what the treasurer's got to do. And so treasurers right now have to be focused on digitalization. They've got to be ready and able to automate everything that can, to save money where they can, so that resources, especially people, are deployed in ways that add value, that aren't just about doing the same task day after day after day mindlessly. And there's a whole lot of that going on. And to anyone who's in that role, it's not too late. This is your time to learn, to adjust, to adapt, to be the first person to say, you know what, I think this can be automated. So don't be afraid of technology. Embrace it and see how you can add to what the technology does. People are not irrelevant. The computers are not taking over the world. You just need to partner with them. They are a tool. Use the tool well.
Definitely. And I agree with you in so many ways, because there's a lot of ways that AI and technology play into recruiting too. But getting back to the technology and the AI and the cash forecasting, I think we might notice a trend here. What does High Radius do, and how does High Radius
Can
tie
you
into
guess?
that?
That's right. This is what I spend a good time talking about
Yeah.
from day to day. So High Radius focuses on improving the accuracy of cash forecasting, automating and improving cash forecasting. And that is our newer area for us as we moved into Treasury. Historically, High Radius's biggest part of our business comes from automating and improving the whole order to cash cycle. So that includes everything from cash application, collections, deductions, credit, and electronic invoice presentment and payments. So we are the leaders in the order to cash space and looking to eventually lead the treasury space as well. And we're making that dent in with cash forecasting. We've been utilizing artificial intelligence for years. So this is just a new application of what we've already been doing. But it's what made me consider High Radius to be a great place to move for. And what really got me excited about coming here is because it's nice to be on the forefront of technology, the forefront of change. And I think we're really making a difference.
So I think, if I'm in the treasurer's seat and I'm for you, or like your elevator pitch to me, I'm wondering, okay, is this going to replace my TMS? Like, how do you, for those treasurers out there that are listening, what value can High Radius bring to them today?
So no, I would not say it replaces a TMS. I believe it to be complementary to a TMS. If you already have a treasury management system, chances are it's doing some great things for you. But around cash forecasting, like most companies, you're probably still utilizing Excel, even though there's a cash forecasting module for it. And that is where and how High Radius can help. Utilizing our tool and our data sciences team, we can entirely automate and improve the cash forecasting process. And so it slides in there and just kind of fills that hole that treasury management systems have left within the treasury area. So if you're not talking to us, then I'd say then you might be running behind because your competitors are. And so I would suggest to every company that wants to see some improvement in both the order to cash space, which has extremely high ROI. So it's a system that can easily pay for itself, as well as around cash forecasting. You should definitely reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you, learn about your business, and see if our solutions can help you.
So if I'm a treasurer who just had that moment of panic saying, crap, I'm running second, how do we get a hold of Tracey or High Radius? What are the avenues to reach you?
Certainly. So highradius.com is our website. You can easily request a demo. You can request to talk to someone. We give lots of webinars and seminars and things that you can watch online as well. So if you want to learn passively or learn kind of proactively, either way works. We are happy to talk to you. And for me personally, if you want to talk to somebody right away, I am always available. Tracey.Knight at highradius.com.
Oh, you sound like you've said that a couple of times before. You have a nice little flow to that. That's awesome.
It's easy to say, although it's taken me quite a few years to say Tracey Knight. I usually say Tracey Ferguson Knight. I was 40 when I got married, so I was a Ferguson for a long, long time. So, but now I'll say Tracey Knight. My husband will be happy.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking at a couple of comments here from the Treasury Talent community that have come in over the course of the conversation. Van Deep, thank you for your question. He asks, should every Treasury professional certify themselves in fintech or familiarize themselves in the fintech area?
I think it definitely helps to familiarize yourself. If you're unaware of what the potential is, then how do you even know what to look for? You kind of don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And what you should know is that there's automation for many areas around the finance department. And so just spend some time learning. Learning through webinars. There's more webinars than we can all attend right now while we're all kind of at home working from home. And so it's a great time to spend time listening to podcasts, webcasts, a good time to learn more things. And so you can do that on your own in your own time easily, more easily now than ever before. And of course, when you feel like you know enough to want to reach out to vendors, we're here as well. You can learn a lot from a vendor long before you're ready to actually make some decision. We know that we are in the education space as well. And with the idea, we're always hoping for a sale eventually, but there are times when, it takes a long time. The goal is to meet your need, to understand your need, to meet your needs. So as you are ready to communicate what that might be, we're here to help fill that gap.
Perfect.
Sounds like you feel the same role as us, Tracey. We spend a lot of time putting content out and educating with the view that you get trusted, and then eventually people come to you, in our case, when they need to recruit within their team.
That's right. And so you start learning, about anything. I research cars long before I walk into a dealership, I already know what I want when I get there. So it's their job to maybe try to upsell me if they can. But for the most part, I know what I want before I get there. And so I think that's how it is around most technologies these days. We all have learned to educate ourselves through YouTube and everything else.
Yeah. And Vandy did have a quick follow-up question. He asks, is High Radius only available in the US, or can it be expanded into Canadian markets as well?
We definitely are a global business with offices both in the United States, in Europe, in India. We've got clients literally all over the world and have done over 1,000 different implementation projects in over 90 different countries. So we are here for you.
Awesome. You have the global footprint. And then last comment that we have is from Tanya, former guest Tanya. She says, Tracey's such a great speaker and a unique personality. Happy I was able to catch this event. So I want to make sure we pass that feedback along to you as well, because it has been a great conversation. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed watching these and have seen quite a few others, and I always thought that would be kind of cool to do. And so I was really happy to be invited.
No, I think I'll speak for the three of us, so we're not speaking over each other. But yeah, we absolutely appreciate this conversation, and keep paying attention along with the rest of the Treasury Talent community. And again, we've put it out there before. If anyone has any questions or suggestions around what they'd like us to cover in these chats, drop us a note. We're more than happy to leverage our network to see who we know and who we can get in front of you to talk about their expertise. So. With that, as always, Treasury community, thank you so much for the questions, the thoughts, the viewership, and the interaction. We really appreciate it week to week. Tracey, we're going to officially take you off the hot seat. Again, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.